Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me. So this is not the main live stream. The main live stream actually starts at 8 p.m. tonight in about an hour, and we're going to be watching a another documentary about the 1979 Islamic Revolution in Iran and rating it, and then giving it critiquing it, and then giving it a rating out of 10. But this is sort of consider this the pre-show because this was a request by one of our channel members. Her name is Jewish Samantha, and she sent the link to me and she asked me for my thoughts on it. And I tried to do it previous nights after the other documentaries, but I never got around to it. And it is short. It's only about 6 minutes long. So I figured we would do sort of a little pre-show, and we'll watch this one, and myself and the Iranians in the chat on YouTube will critique it and give our thoughts on that. So دوستان اگه دارین از اکس نگاه میکنین و میخواین نظراتون رو به زبان انگلیسی بدین، لطفا به ما توی کانال یوتیوب بپیوندین. اونجا میتونین کامنتاتون رو توی چت بذارین به زبان انگلیسی که همه دوستا هم غیر ایرانی ها هم کامنتاتون رو ببینن. لینک یوتیوب هم زیر پست این اکس. Okay, so for the non-Iranians, I just let everyone know who's watching on X that if they would like to join the YouTube conversation, they're welcome to come to YouTube. Major. So $10, it says the article won't mention Ali Shariati. I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out. We'll have to find out and see. So let me explain to you guys a little bit and provide a little bit of context before we dig in here and actually watch the commentary. So it starts out by saying, since the revolution turned Iran into an Islamic Republic, few voices other than the party line have been accepted in the public realm and exposed externally. As the recent anti-regime protests in the country show, so they're talking about 2020, okay? So the 2020 anti-regime protests are before the 2022 ones, which became famously known as the Woman Life Freedom Movement. And I will dig into this a little bit. So as the recent anti-regime protests in the country show, a large group of Iranians has increasingly become disenchanted with the country's international isolation, structures of Islamic governance, and what it sees as the blatant exploitation of religion for political ends. How do Iranians living in the UK conceive of themselves and relate to their religion, society, culture, heritage, and the recent political crisis? So, I want to give you a bit of a primer on what was happening in Iran in 2019 and 2020. So, um, we actually refer to that time as Bloody November. And the reason that we call it Bloody November is um, when riots were escalated, sorry, not riots, when like anti-regime demonstrations were escalating, what the Islamic Republic did is they shut down the internet, they shut down communications, and then they massacred thousands of people. The official number of young people that were massacred is 1,500, but all evidence shows that the number was likely much higher than 1,500. 1,500 is just the minimum, basically. Um, and what happened in 2019, November 2019, is typical of how the Islamic Republic operates. In the late 80s, they also um, engaged in a series of mass executions, and the numbers range from anywhere from 5,000 to 30,000 or more people. So I just want to give you a bit of context about what was happening um, in 2020, because a lot of people think that Iranians have only now been trying to overthrow the Islamic Republic. The reality is that ever since the Islamic Republic got into power in 1979, as of right then, Iranians have been trying to overthrow the regime and reclaim the country one way or another. Um, the only reason that most people don't know about it or haven't heard about it is because of exactly what happened in 2019, which is the regime shut down the internet. I mean, first of all, prior to internet and social media, no one outside of Iran even knew what was happening, right? Like non-Iranians had no clue what was happening. So that's the first thing. So for the first, 20, 30 years, the Islamic Republic was very good at hiding the crimes against humanity that it was engaging in against the Iranian people, because they're a totalitarian dictatorship. They have control over everything, right? And any sort of news coming out of the Islamic Republic, if it's coming from like official media outlets, that's basically Islamic regime propaganda. We Iranians, we don't trust that. Um, so that was that. And then it's only because of internet and social media that we are now able to share with the world what is happening in occupied Iran and what has been going on for the last 47 years. So what happened in 2019? Here, let me just read through this. Usually I'm pretty skeptical about Wikipedia articles, but I did read this one before I started this mini live stream, and it is pretty accurate. So I'm just gonna read this for you guys. So it's the 2019-2020 Iranian protests. So the 2019-2020 Iranian protests, sometimes known as Bloody November, or Aban Khunin, November is known as Aban in Farsi, were a series of nationwide civil protests in Iran that took place in 2019 and 2020. Initially caused by a 50 to 200% increase in fuel prices, they occurred as part of the wider Iranian democracy movement, leading to calls for the overthrow of the government in Iran and Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. So, guys, even as far back as, well, this is only 6 years ago, but we also have evidence of as far back as 2012, right? Almost a decade ago, people have been calling for the overthrow of the Islamic Republic. So, the protests commenced as peaceful gatherings on the evening of 15th November, but spread to 21 cities within hours as videos of the protests circulated online. eventually becoming the most violent and severe anti-government unrest since the Iranian Revolution in 1979. Again, I don't like Iranian. So what was happening in 2019 was getting very close to the level of activity in 1979 when the um, Islamists and the communists took over the country, right? So, and then here you can see, these are images. So, um, right, these are all the anti-Islamic Republic demonstrators who were demonstrating against the Islamic Republic. So here's where it gets to the part where a lot of people don't know about. So to block the sharing of information regarding the protests and the deaths of hundreds of protesters on social media. It's not actually hundreds, guys, it's thousands. It's the deaths of thousands of protesters. The government shut down the internet nationwide, resulting in a near total internet blackout of around 6 days. So, guys, basically for a week, the internet was completely shut down. Those of us outside the country had no idea what was happening inside. Um, there was no way for Iranians inside of occupied Iran to communicate with the outside world because the Islamic Republic had shut down the internet completely. And then, in an effort to crush the protests, the Islamic Republic shot protesters dead from rooftops, from helicopters, and at close range with machine gun fire. In an effort to mask the scale and casualty count of the protests, it hauled away large numbers of bodies of the dead protesters and threatened families of slain protesters to not speak to the media or hold funerals. Um, that's how the Islamic Republic operates, guys. So this, what you're seeing here, this is what they have been doing for 47 years. They did it in the 1980s, and they've been continuing to do it. There are still um, thousands of families who don't know what happened to their children because they were doing this, guys. They were doing this to mostly university students, right? People in their late teens, early 20s. So this is the only part that I disagree with, guys. As many as 1,500 Iranian protesters were killed. Guys, it was way more than that. Like some numbers show that it could have been as high as 5,000, if not even higher than that. We just don't know because the Islamic Republic has been, hiding all the bodies. The government crackdown and protests resulted in the destruction of 731 government banks, including Iran's central bank, 9 Islamic religious centers, protesters tearing down anti-American billboards. Guys, this is important, right? The protesters, so the Islamic Republic spends money to put up billboards that are anti-American, right? Death to America, all that nonsense. As part of the demonstrations against the Islamic Republic, the Iranian university students were tearing down anti-American billboards, right? Because that was their way of trying to show the world that this anti-American ideology is not something that they agree with. And they were trying to show the world that, we have no enmity with America. It's the Islamic Republic, right? So it was very, very purposeful for them to take down anti-American billboards. They were also taking down posters and statues of the supreme dictator, Ali Khamenei, and the president at the time, and the former supreme dictator, Khomeini, right? So they were literally tearing down statues of the Islamic Republic supreme dictators, right? 50 government military bases were also attacked. I hate that they call it the Iranian regime, guys. It's the Islamic regime. The Islamic regime also employed a week-long nationwide internet shutdown, becoming the longest total internet shutdown in a country. It was also the first blackout that effectively isolated a whole nation. So that's basically what happens in occupied Iran whenever Iranians try to rise up. So for those of you who've always had that question, well, if Iranians hate the Islamic Republic, why don't they rise up? They have. They have been trying constantly. And yet every single time they try, they're mass murdered, right? And we Iranians, we know about Bloody November, but non-Iranians don't know about it because, again, the Islamic Republic tries desperately to hide this stuff. And this wasn't really in the news. It wasn't in the media. No one was covering this. And all of us outside of the country, we were freaking out because it was a total blackout. And unless you've experienced it, unless you've lived it, it's incredibly hard to imagine living in a country where the government will shut down internet access in order to murder you, right? It's basically like it's a genocide. Like the Islamic Republic has been genociding Iranians for the last 47 years, and no one ever talks about that. So that's basically sort of a summary of the 2019-2020 Iranian protests, which is what this commentary by Times News is referencing. So now we're actually going to watch the video itself. Let me just put it up on stage. Okay. And again, this video was made at the request of one of our channel members, Jewish Samantha. So, one of the perks of being a member is, you get priority access to what we critique and talk about during the live streams. So again, this is just sort of the pre-show. Our main documentary will be live streaming at 8 p.m. on a separate live stream. So make sure you tune in after this as well. So let's go through this, and I will let you guys know how accurate or not this is.
Nostalgia is creeping through the society for the times before the revolution, which is, considering what the regime has done in the last 40 years, is completely normal. People forget that before the revolution, there was still corruption, still political prisoners, there were still tortures in prisons. The change was needed. Definitely there was a change that was needed, but on hindsight now, looking back, this wasn't that change.
Obviously for us, it was like an earthquake.
I know her actually, so I know Nazanin. I met her when I traveled to Israel last year. Wonderful woman, very, very smart, highly educated.
I remember the last meal I had in Tehran, which was baghali polo, my favorite. Arrests started.
So guys, these are what you're seeing. This is footage from Iran prior to the Islamic Republic, right? That's why women can walk around freely without their hair covered or anything like that.
Schools were closed. We became refugees in the sense that we had nothing. Everything we had was in Iran.
It was like something so grand happening, that everybody wanted either to be a part of it or witness it. Personally, I was a witness to that. And I have apologized to the people of Iran, to history, for being a witness to what that and didn't.
So that's a sentiment of a lot of Iranian people who were around in 1979, because again, one of the false narratives that the Islamists and the communists put out is that the Islamic takeover was done by the majority of Iranians. It actually wasn't. The vast majority of Iranians, I would say probably like 80 to 85% of Iranians, were just the silent majority, like they were just witnesses, right? And the reason that they never got involved is because they never took the Islamists seriously. They never took the communists seriously they were just sort of on the sidelines going, okay, these people are crazy, you know, that the Shah's going to take care of this. We don't have to worry about this. The Shah's going to protect us. And then by the time things got too heated and the Shah left to avoid blood and confrontation, it was too late. So again, let's just pay attention to this part where she says she was a witness. That was like basically 80 to 85% of Iranians during that time, and the vast majority regret it now, as they should, of course.
Personally, I was a witness to that, and I have apologized to the people of Iran, to history, for being a witness to what that and didn't oppose it, because none of us knew what happens after. And I think quite a number of us thought that something grand and wonderful will happen after that. Well, I had brothers who were in the revolution, and then I had the others who were not. We had members of the family who were indifferent, and members of the family who were against the revolution. We couldn't agree on things anymore, and that was within every household, within every family.
I remember tanks on the streets of my hometown. Kind of the energy and the excitement that was within the people when it was happening. I could feel it as a 10-year-old.
Thousands of people went on the street, and we joined them. We actually didn't know why we were joining those people. Those people didn't know why they were on the streets. Nobody thought that actually the Shah's regime would be gone. And
right, so do you see that? Like, people didn't even know why they were going out. They just saw demonstrators going out, so it was like a snowball effect, and then a whole bunch of people just joined, not even knowing what they're on the streets for.
another regime would come into power.
The majority of the population is under the age of 35, and the revolution was now 40 years ago. So you've got a majority of people who have, I don't want to say suffered under this revolution, but have felt the consequences of it when they had no say in the matter. There's an element of despair amongst the people. The price of bread and meat goes up day by day because of the sanctions imposed. It becomes more.
Okay, so that's actually false. The price of bread and meat are not going up because of sanctions. The price of bread and meat are going up and are continuing to go up because the Islamic Republic does not understand how to run the economy, and they've run the economy into the ground. So that is 100% false. The economic sanctions are basically against like military weapons, things like that. It's not against bread. So that's false. That guy probably just doesn't know what he's talking about, because that, unfortunately, there are Iranians who just assume that the sanctions mean poverty, and that's not the case at all. The people of Iran live below the poverty line because the Islamic Republic steals all the finances and pockets it for themselves, and then they fund terrorism around the world. It's nothing to do with the sanctions.
More difficult for people to feed their families.
Iran is the only country at the moment where its government and its system is not putting Iran first, the Iranian nation first, is putting
100%.
Islam first. And
100%.
that is the tragedy of Iran, that it is being consumed within a cause that is fiery and is illogical. Not everybody thinks the same, and we shouldn't expect everybody to think the same. What we should expect is for people to enjoy the same rights, and that's what we don't have now.
Islamic Iran is the only Iran I know. If religion take over control of everything, you know, every law in country and your personal life, it's not going to work because people can just use your belief to suppress you. We want to change, but we don't know still what is that change. What is going.
So This documentary is from 2020 again, so this is not from right now. So my only criticism is that it is a little bit dated because Iranians right now, especially since 2022, right, with the brutal murder of Mahsa Amini, since 2022, Iranians both inside the country and outside the country have made it clear that they want regime change, right? Like it's just that's it. Like there's nothing else. The only thing that we want is regime change. We want the Islamic regime to be overthrown. We want a free, secular democracy. So that's the only, take that with a grain of salt. So this is not like a recent interview. This is from about 6 years ago. So in that sense, it's not helpful. But in the sense of talking about, what life is like in occupied Iran, I mean, it's okay.
To happen to Iran, how international countries are intervening in Iran, how maybe their support of one of these opposition groups might affect what is happening to Iran, and is it right or wrong? One of the things that I fear is that we make the mistakes that we made 40 years ago.
The political system.
I mean, sure, if you're afraid of that, fine, but like, there is literally nothing that could come afterwards that is worse than what we have already been living through for the last 47 years. Now, again, that fear is definitely a founded fear because a lot of Iranians have trauma from the Islamic Republic, right? It's a brutal dictatorship. That fear has actually been alleviated now because the current opposition leader, His Royal Highness King Reza Pahlavi, he's the Shah in exile. He has been working on a day after plan, and he has been working on establishing a transitional government. So as of right now, we actually don't have that fear because there is a plan in place. Again, this is a documentary from 6 years ago. 6 years ago, we didn't have this plan, but now we do. And that's actually something that I'm going to be talking about in my live stream next week. So make sure that you're subscribed to my channel. And I do my like daily live stream shows, like the main ones I do at 12 noon Eastern. So next week I will definitely be talking about the transitional government, the plan for the day after, and we actually do have it all laid out of how we're going to go transition from a totalitarian dictatorship to a functioning secular democracy. And whether or not that's going to be a constitutional monarchy or a republic, that's going to be decided at the ballot box. I'm personally a huge fan of constitutional monarchy. That's what I'm going to be voting for. But again, that's conversation for another time. But I did just want to add that context here because what she's saying, that fear of not knowing what's going to happen after the Islamic Republic is overthrown, that was a legitimate concern for many Iranians 6 years ago in 2020. But now, now that we're getting close to 2026, that's no longer a concern at all because we do have a plan in place. So that part is dated, so I don't want anyone to watch this, now and think that this is still a concern because it's just not.
In Iran is likely to have some reform in the coming years. They have a very, very young population. This population now has lived for the entirety of their lives under the rule of the revolution. My greatest fear regarding any change that we could see in Iran is seeing it handled in a careless manner, as we have seen in other nations across the Middle East.
So again, like that is a legitimate fear to have 5 years ago, 6 years ago. But again, that's not a concern today because we have a plan in place. We have an official opposition leader in place. And in fact, the transitional booklet is available online. So, what I'll do maybe, because I have a little bit of time before the main live stream starts at 8 p.m. So maybe after this documentary, I will go over the transitional booklet just a little bit, maybe give you guys a sneak preview of what I'm going to talk about next week.
The sides that are in the best position to instigate this change don't have the best interests of the country at heart. Going to Iran this summer, there was so much beauty, so much love from the people, and it would be heartbreaking to see all of that destroyed.
Okay, so I mean that's like that kid's personal opinion, um, which is fine. I would probably, because again, so this was a let me pull it back up again. This was a Times documentary from 2020, right? So let me just pull it up here. Okay. So this was a documentary that we just watched from Times News. I will include the link to this documentary in the video description after I'm done this live stream. So it's from May 2020. So it is outdated in the sense of, what's the plan? We're worried about what's going to happen the day after. That part, there are several significant updates since then. But in terms of, I guess life in occupied Iran, I mean that part's accurate. Again, this is more of sort of a fluff, not really a fluff, right? Like nothing relating to the Islamic Republic is fluff, but it's more of like an emotional type of thing. And I'm not one to criticize any Iranian for what they think and feel. But in terms of what life is like inside the country, 100%. The only thing I would say is inaccurate is when that guy said that the sanctions contribute to poverty. That's just not the case at all. It's not the sanctions that contribute to poverty. Um, it's the Islamic Republic themselves stealing money. But okay, so to give you a little bit of a sneak preview into what I'm going to talk about next week, there is a transitional plan in place. So, once the Islamic Republic is overthrown, a transitional government is going to come in. And there's actually a book that was written. So I have to download the book here. Here we go. So there's a book that was written. So this is just the first draft of the book, guys. Okay. So it's called the Emergency Phase Booklet. And within this book, okay, they actually talk about the plan for the first 100 to 180 days. Okay. So it's fully available online. You guys are more than welcome to go and check it out on your own time if you're interested. I'll include the link to this in the video description of this live stream as well after I'm done the live stream. But for anyone who says, well, what's going to happen after the Islamic Republic is overthrown? It's going to turn into another Libya or I don't know, Afghanistan or Iraq or whatever. It's complete and utter nonsense. These people just either haven't been paying attention or they just don't care, right? The truth is there is a plan. And it's been written by some of the foremost experts on in various topics, various areas. But not only that, this booklet has been out for a while, and the Shah of Iran in exile actually had set up an opportunity for Iranians to review this emergency booklet and provide their feedback. So many of us did, right? Even myself, I reviewed it and I gave my feedback using my 10 years of experience in politics, 7 of those as an elected official, right? So I drew upon my time as a politician in Canada to provide my input and feedback on this booklet as well. So it has been a very, very democratic process. And yeah, so there you go. That I guess for a rating out of 10, I don't know, for the Iranians who are in the chat, I mean, if I was going to rate this out of 10, I mean, I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10 maybe. Because again, it is an old commentary piece. So, I mean, at the time, it would have been, at the time, it was definitely relevant. So, 7 out of 10 for what it was at the time. But the concerns they have, like, it's just there's been a lot of updates when it comes to Iran and the Islamic in the overthrow of the Islamic Revolution. So there you go, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this little brief mini live stream where I showed this commentary. It was at the request of one of my channel members, Jewish Samantha. And yeah, that's one of the perks of being a member. We have our members only message board, and it's actually surprisingly pretty active. It's surprisingly pretty active, and I've asked the people who have joined my YouTube channel as a member for their suggestions on what they want me and other Iranians to review. This one was only 6 minutes long. That's why this is a much shorter live stream. But I am coming back at 8 p.m. So in about 25 minutes or so, I'm coming back. That's going to be our actual our main show, let's say, right? This was sort of just like the pre-show. And at 8 p.m., we're going to watch another documentary about the 1979 Islamic Revolution. So far, we have watched 3 documentaries. And the reason that I'm doing this is because many of you have asked me for information about the Islamic Revolution, what happened, what led up, all that stuff. And you've also asked me for documentaries that I could recommend. And, we Iranians, we don't watch English language documentaries about the Islamic Revolution because most of it is fake news, propaganda. It basically just the narrative that's constantly being pushed by the communists and the Islamists, right? All that fake news propaganda that you would never see. Like the stuff that you see and hear about in English language documentaries about Iran and the Shah. God bless his soul, by the way. We love the Shah. The stuff you hear about Iran and the Shah and the Islamic Revolution, you would never hear that narrative in Persian, because for us, we know what happened, and that false propaganda does not work anymore. Like we have our own documentaries, our own historians, our own articles on all of that. But unfortunately, the Islamists and communists have dominated the English language narrative. And so the narrative and the story in English is completely different from the accepted historical facts in Farsi. So initially I decided, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna watch a documentary and if it's good, I'll recommend it. And then I was like, why don't I just live stream it? I'll live stream it and I'll see if people are interested in following along. And so I started that on Monday with the first documentary, live streamed it. A lot of people came and joined, including a lot of Iranians as well. And they're here in the chat right now, and they're speaking and giving their thought and input as well. And it was surprising, like it was very frustrating to see all the false narratives there, but it was also really nice to talk about it and criticize it. So we did that on Monday. There was a lot of interest, a lot of support. And a 55-minute documentary took us about 4 hours to get through. Okay, so think about that. It was a 55-minute documentary, 4 hours to get through, because for 3 of those hours out of the 4, I was talking and explaining and providing context and fixing the narrative and all of that. So that first documentary, we gave it a rating of 3 out of 10. Then we saw another documentary Tuesday night. That one we gave a rating of 0 out of 10. And then the documentary last night was even worse than the other 2. And that documentary, we gave it a rating of middle finger out of 10, because that was a documentary that was produced by Al Jazeera. And Al Jazeera is an Islamist outlet that basically promotes jihad and Islamic terrorism, and it's basically a mouthpiece for the Islamic Republic. So I knew that the Al Jazeera one was going to be terrible. I didn't think it would be that bad, but that one, like, we gave it a rating of middle finger out of 10. So we have another one for tonight, starting in about 20 minutes. I actually am a little bit more hopeful about this one. I'm not going to say why in this live stream, because I don't want to give it away. I haven't watched it yet, but just looking at the description, in the video, the description gives me a little bit of hope that maybe this one might be a little bit better than the other ones. So, anyways, thank you all for joining me for this little pre-show, and I will see you all in about 20 minutes for the main event. And until then, Payanda Iran, Javid Shah. See you guys soon.